Good morning, everybody. It is 5:44 on your Friday morning. I'm Roger Susanin, live at the Breaking News Desk. Right now, we're following several big developing stories, but I want to begin with a major shakeup in the U.S. House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi has announced that she will not seek a leadership position in the next Congress. This will end her 4 non-consecutive terms as Speaker of the House. Republicans are set to take control of the House after the recent midterm elections. Kevin McCarthy is the frontrunner to serve as new Speaker. Meanwhile, Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York is expected to make a formal bid as new Democratic leader in the House. We're also tracking developing news in Texas, where just hours ago, the Uvalde School Board appointed an interim police chief to oversee student safety. Trustees have hired Josh Gutierrez, who worked with interim superintendent Gary Patterson in the East Central School District in the past. Gutierrez has already met with family members of the victims who were killed during the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School, and he answered their questions about safety moving forward. We're going to continue to track those developing stories here at the Breaking News Desk, and we'll have another update next hour. Live at the Breaking News Desk, I'm Roger Susanin, Channel 3 Eyewitness News. Scott?
All right, thanks, Roger. Hey.